Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Joshsnipes, and today, if you are taking a look and you need something, just some sort of tip, some sort of trick, make sure to hit the subscribe button and the like button, because that's what we do here on the channel. We do all sorts of operator guides, map guides, and tips and tricks videos like this one. So make sure if that's stuff you like, stay tuned. It really helps out the channel a lot. Also, if you like the video, because it just the algorithm and all that stuff just really likes that stuff. So please, do me a favor, hit the like button really quick while you guys are beginning the video. Without further ado though, we're going to be taking a look at some of the siege definitions. Now, these aren't necessarily siege specific, but it's definitely words that are outside of normal callouts that I feel like not too many people know, or maybe if you're just getting into the game, especially if this is like your first shooter or second shooter, you're not too experienced. These are probably some terms that you've heard in game that other people use, but you don't know what they mean. So that's kind of the goal of this video. I'm going to go over some of the different things that people kind of say, and then sort of what that means in different explanations. Some are really short, some are just kind of, yeah, that's exactly what that means. Others need a little bit more detail and possibly an explanation through the game. So let's hop right into today's video. So the first definition is going to be rotate. Now, normally rotate, you would think is when you go from one site to the other. It's the same concept, but normally when you're saying rotate, you're going to say make a rotate or make the rotate hole. It's just a short way of saying rotate hole. And a lot of the times what a rotate hole is basically where you put a hole, either with an impact or a C4 or a shotgun, from one site to the other. This is also used from a site room into another room. Well, it might not necessarily be the other bomb site, but basically what this is a hole that goes in and out of sight easily and accessibly, so that way your teammates can get in and out of sight as needed. One of the basic things about this is that when you're making a rotation, you want to make sure that you sort of understand where can someone see me from either side of the rotate hole. Because if you put a hole in the middle of a wall where there shouldn't be a hole, you're going to get a lot of people pretty mad at you, and that's not what you want to do when you're playing. And I'm going to show you guys some examples and some ideas of what you're doing when you're making a rotate hole. I honestly think that rotate holes is a very key part of how you lay out a site and how you play a site, because if there's no rotate hole and say you're stuck on an operator like Jaeger where you don't have a shotgun, you don't have a C4, you don't have impacts, and you don't have any other way to really get rid of the wall to actually get into sight, you're going to be in a lot of trouble. Sure, all the operators can put holes into the wall, but you can't rotate through it. You see, I use the word there. You can't rotate through it because of the fact that they're not able to take out the entire wall. They can take out some of it and give yourself sort of something to peek through, but they can't necessarily make a rotate. So I hope that this example shows you guys exactly what I'm talking about. Let's move on to the next one. Now, the next word is going to be default, or default plant spot. Obviously, default is shorter for default plant spot, but when you're in the middle of a round, obviously you want to use something that's a lot shorter, hence default. But one of the biggest things to me is what a default plant spot is and what that callout gives. It tells you exactly where that person is planting, and I mean exactly where that person is planting. A lot of maps have spots that about 90 to 95% of this community use this, more so at a higher level, not necessarily in your sort of silvers and your bronze and coppers. A lot of times you'll see it in plat, definitely see it in diamond and champion. One of the biggest things to me, though, when you're talking about default or default plant spots, is that there is a spot on a site where a lot of people like to go plant. One of my favorite examples of this is on bank. When you play it on the basement defense, or if you're attacking the basement defense, you're going to have to deal with sort of trying to get into either site. One of the most famous plant spots I feel like on that map is when you're trying to take blue, you get the server wall open, and you sort of back into this little plant spot that's right next to the desk. Now, it's extremely hard to shoot someone that's in that plant spot. There is a couple angles onto it, but when you call out default plant, that's exactly what that means, is that exact plant spot right there. And that call out is sort of used on multiple different maps because there are different default plant spots depending on the map. And I think that one of my favorite things is that you can call that and immediately people know exactly what you're talking about. There's not really a guess. Sure, you might call default A, default B, or something like that, but there's not really a guess of where the bomb is being, or the diffuser is being planted. It's immediately known to your teammates. That's the idea behind default. Now, the next one we're going to be talking about is peeking. Now, what is peeking, you might ask? Well, peeking normally refers to spawn peeking, but I think that the overall general consensus of the definition is where someone either punches out a window or someone punches out or takes down that window, and you're able to see from the inside of the building to the outside of the building. Normally people will look towards the spawns, or they'll try to find someone rotating around the building or someone trying to rappel up that building. Now when you hear someone call out spawn peeking, whatever the room that they're spawn peeking from, normally you're gonna look for a broken open window or just a hole in a window or something to indicate that the window is not completely barricaded closed and that there is someone actually looking at you trying to shoot you. Now the next one that I want to talk about is something that I hear people usually call. Normally you hear your teammates call swing wide and get him, he's on the right, or something of that nature. Now if you've never really played shooters that often, you're not going to understand what swinging means or swinging wide really means. Basically, normally when someone's aiming at a doorway or aiming down a hallway or something of that nature, they usually will hold their crosshairs on about the pillar or like sort of the 90 corner of that hallway, so that way if you do quick peek them, they're able to shoot you quickly. But the thing is, if you swing wide, you're going to make them miss, especially if they don't have quick reaction time. You're going to make them miss, and then you're going to be able to capitalize on their miss by getting the kill yourself. Because normally you're going to swing wide because you have information. You don't just want to swing wide all the time and just sort of face checking everything. Now the next one is going to be utility and utility dump. I'm just going to sort of pair these together because they end up playing off each other either way. Now utility is basically any unique gadget on an operator. So you have Zophia's concussions and impacts, you have Hibana's X Kairos, you have Jaeger's ADS, things of that nature. That's usually called utility. But normally when you hear the word utility dump, it's when, say, you know the smokes are coming in, you know that the Zofia is going to start shooting your concussion mine, you know there might be a frag coming in, a flashbang, just anything of that nature that might be thrown on in is usually called a utility dump. It's basically getting rid of everything that you have in order to try to get the plant down in the right spot and or at least try to get rid of someone in a corner that they've been stuck in for a long time. It's been hard for them to get out. Now the next one I want to talk about are the roles that normal operators sort of fit into and sort of what you can expect when you're playing when people talk about roles. And this one's kind of hard because it could honestly take its own video for each one, but I'm just going to try to quickly explain all of them. Now the first one is anchor. This is someone that is on the defensive side and normally will stay on site and not really leave site at all. They might go for like a late flank or something, but they're not going to leave site at the beginning at the very least, and because they need to make sure that they hold down site while the other people are trying to get some kills. Now those other people are typically called roamers. What roamers are is basically someone that doesn't start off the map on the site when the action phase actually hits. They were going to be upstairs below the site, somewhere on the other side of the map, somewhere of that nature, so that way they can try and get an opening pick or two, try to get a kill here or there, and that way they can slow down the attack and not allow the anchors to see anyone. Because that's kind of the goal. You don't want your anchors to take any fights. If the roamers can do their job and just waste as much time as possible, then hopefully the anchors will be okay on site. Now, part of that too is you sort of has what's called a flex. Now, flex is on both sides, but for the defensive side, a flex is typically anyone that can go either way. So a good example of that is sort of Mozzie. Mozzie is a really good example of that because he's a 2-speed, so he's not the fastest operator that there is, but he also has the utility and he has the guns and loadout to be able to sort of roam or to anchor on site. Either way, you're going to be fine with Mozzie, and that you see people play him differently. That's kind of what the flex is all about, is a lot, depending on who's playing them, you'll see it get played differently. Now, the next one that I want to talk about is support. Now, support on the attacking side, when talking about support, that's typically someone who's going to help the people who are trying to get into the building first. They're going to help them get in the building safely and not die. Also, the support will usually try and get the wall open or help get the wall open. So think of Thatcher. Thatcher's a really good example of this. He helps Thermite get the wall open. Now, Thermite, Hibana, and Maverick-ish are usually called hard breachers. It's kind of like a sub role, if you will. But basically, the hard breachers their main job is to get the walls open or hatches open first. Then they're kind of free to do whatever. Now, flex obviously has the same exact sort of definition on this side. You can go and be a support, or you can be an entry. Now, entry, on the other hand, that's going to be sort of your Ashe, your Zofia, the people who are trying to get in the building as fast as possible and get as much control as fast as possible. Normally, your support will drone them in, and they'll be able to get some opening kills and help the team out. Now, the next one you guys probably hear a lot, especially more so if you just got into the game, is you have intel. What is intel? What exactly does intel mean? Typically, when people are referring to intel, they're talking about cameras. So think of your normal cameras, so like the CCTV cameras that are kind of all over the map, that start on the map. You have your Valkyrie cameras, you have your Evil Eye cameras from Maestro, you have your Echo drones, you have bulletproof cameras from different operators. So these are some just examples of what quote-unquote intel is, usually referred to as intel. And I feel like intel is pretty self-explanatory in that it gives good callouts. It allows you to make plays that you wouldn't have been able to make otherwise because you didn't necessarily have all the information at that point in time without the camera. Now, the next one that I want to talk about is punch hole. Now, I've heard these called a bunch of different things. Heard it called peek hole. I've heard it called punch hole. I think that overall, punch hole is kind of the best example because it's kind of exactly what you're doing. But basically what a punch hole is it allows you to sort of get a very tiny angle and say, if you're playing on border, you put a punch hole at the bottom of the 90 wall. You can see all the way to east stairs. But the thing is, most people peek head level. When they're trying to face check something, when they're trying to look down a hallway, they're going to peek head level because that's where most people will be. Now, normally, if you can put like a punch hole at the bottom of a wall or something where you're not going to immediately look there, if you have the reaction time for that, you're going to capitalize on that kill before whoever is peeking on the other side of that hallway tries and gets the kill. Now, one of my favorite things to talk about is you'll hear people say hold a pixel. Either hold a pixel or go for a pixel peek or something of that nature. Now, a pixel peek is basically where you are holding a very, very tight angle in between two doorways. And what you're trying to do with this angle is gather information. You're not necessarily going to get a kill unless for some reason the defender or the attacker who you're trying to play against peeks the exact same angle as you do and you just happen to be holding it there first. With a pixel peek, you're trying to look for information for if someone crosses a doorway and then you peek it out. Pixel peeks are pretty useful in this game because of the way that the perspectives work, and having this sort of information can win you gunfights more times than it won't because of the fact that you'll be able to see them make the correct play and make the correct decision in time because you know exactly where they are. Now, the final thing that we're going to be talking about in today's video is called the site execute. Now, you might hear casters and players say go for the site execute, or they're going for the site execute. Normally, when you hear this basically means that, hey, the attacking side has gotten into sight and they are trying to plant the diffuser. And they don't want, if you're on the defensive side, you do not want them to plant the diffuser because the post plant is so much harder to defend against than just the normal action phase. Now, when we're talking about when they plant the diffuser and you're talking about the site execute, this usually refers to maybe smokes go down, Zofia grenades come out, or some just like you see flashbangs start to get thrown to clear out ADSs. Things of that nature start to indicate that, hey, the site execute is going to happen here in a moment. You need to be ready because a lot of times you might have one go for plant and the other actually push further into site to try to get some kills and try to hold off the defense from trying to get the plant. So anyways, guys, though, I hope this was informational. I hope that you guys learned something. Let me know if you have any sort of definitions or whatever have you for other people, because I feel like if we can clear all this stuff up, newer players can have a lot easier time sort of getting into the game because this is kind of a complicated game. But without further ado, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. And with that being said, this is going to be Joshsnipes signing off.